not good for a very materialistic society which is going to criticize you. So now just stay rooted there, and if you stay just rooted there, and I've been rooted here for many years, rooted here, and then a certain thought comes, and I'm unable to even say whether this is my desire or not. I don't know really. A certain desire. So like it happened to me while I was doing research in Bombay. So my position was such that I refused to go along with the compulsions of society, which is what? Which is to be in the rat race. Right? Yeah. Now, when you're not in the rat race, then you become a kind of threat to everybody who is in the race, because you're a bad example for them. And so now a thought comes in this. We don't even know whether it's your thought. And the thought is that I already was doing research for 6 years, and but that research which I did, which was very good kind of research, it did not lead to a doctorate for various reasons of my destiny. Then, but who cares? Just abiding here all the time. Now here, a particular new thought is now coming, that I want to do this research in the quark exchange mechanism of nuclear forces. A new thought has come. Now, I'm not interested really, but it's just come to stay. And then, okay, I said I'm not excited by it. I didn't ask for it. I didn't ask for it. It's just come by itself, like a wind coming through the window. And then immediately things start happening. It's like the thought or the desire is the harbinger of other things to follow. It's just the pilot wave which is going to bring in its wake a whole lot of other things which are going to happen. And then I started working on a problem, on a research problem which was very, very interesting and very profound. And within 8 months, I completed my doctoral work. Now, because you are here, and whether you had a thought and this thought went to the divine, and then the divine immediately gave the blessing, or the thought itself was a transmission given to you by the divine, as well as the fulfillment of the thought, I really don't know. I'm just reporting a happening from my life. That you stay poised here and don't have to struggle to actually be the master of your life and to go on earning and to go on acquiring and to go on being in the race, not necessary. So just abide in the I amness. And then a thought is coming, you don't even know if it's your desire. Then immediately in the wake of that thought, whole lot of things are happening for the fulfillment of that. So I call that desire, that I wish to do the research in the quark exchange mechanism of nuclear forces, I called it Shiva's Sankalpa, studying the whole thing. Because I was not interested. Why did it come 6 years after I got into research? It's not my asking. It just came. And then it got fulfilled by itself. And the whole lot of thing, there's a boat coming, and then you're just put into that boat, and the boat reaches the destination. So there's no effort. It's completely effortless. Completely divine grace. And my thesis was dedicated to my master and my parents as a token of gratitude to my master, because he gave me the spiritual initiation when I was 15. And so now these are examples which we have got to study very closely, and so that we start learning from them. Because in them is the clue to the abode of the divine. Where is the divine and who is the divine? Now you've got to do this in your life. You heard an example. Now you've got to work by yourself in your life. Paying close attention and having the courage and the guts to walk out of the rat race. For people who are in my age bracket, it's okay, because there is no race anymore. Or there could still be a race going on, I don't know. But for younger people, to go out of the race, even though the Western society is supposed to be a very individualistic society, where the individual is more important than the collective, and the individual has a whole lot of more freedom than in a more conservative society like in Hindu India. But still, even in that society, I think there's a race, and you are in that race. And this may not happen to you so long as you're in the race. And either by divine dispensation, you've got to be bombed out of that race, or you've got to very consciously step out of that race. Am I making sense? Why not we discuss something else? Taken such a vexing question. So there are advantages in abiding in this. So one gentleman came to me when I was doing my master's work in our ashram. He was from Norway. He was more than 70 years old, and he told me the story of my life. And then I heard it all. And then he asked me, what should I be doing actually? And I told him, be nothing, do nothing. Be nothing, do nothing. And he was shocked. He said, you really mean it? I said, I mean it. He couldn't take it. Because he's so accustomed to that running, and the whole, the beauty of savoring life and just going and walking with life, that's something we don't know. Because we are not living in the moment. We are living in the future, in our dreams, or we are wallowing in the past, in our hurts and in the burdens. So what it is just to live from day to day may be a very strange thing, a slightly fearsome thing for us. A scare. So when you abide here in the I amness, in the I which is naked, not I as something, I as a rich man, I as so and so, I had all these experiences, this is me, please see my visiting card. Not that I. You following? Got to get the naked eye, get hold of the naked eye, which is what we actually are, and just be there, be rooted there. And then just keep moving through life. Be sensitive to the whole moment of life. Know that the whole moment is God, a moment of God, and just live from day to day and just move with it. Can't you give us a meditation? Okay. I'm making good progress. I've come to, how many slides do we have?
128.
Okay. Okay, I'll cut out some. Anybody wants to say something? Wants to say something? A real question, because you're seeking and you want to find, and there may be questions on the road. This is one among many, many paths to the divine. Just one. This happens to be my path, and the path may be suitable to some people, or even if you are not able to accept the path in its entirety, then there are portions in that path and there are chapters in that path which may be very relevant to you, which may clear your doubts and which may actually put you on a path when for many years you might have actually taken a pause in the spiritual journey. A pause, a very long pause. For 7 years, you're just stagnant. And then you don't know actually which way to go. You're at crossroads. And then you need a new impetus, a new push. So any questions at this point? Yes.
Te voy siguiendo en lo que vas diciendo y de repente me hacen sentido muchas de las enseñanzas. Y me pasa algo internamente. Te escucho y... ¿Quieres decir algo? ¿Sí? Te escucho y resuena en muchas cosas que hago. Escucho enseñanzas de la Guanes y también me resuena en muchas cosas que hago. Y tomo clases de budismo y también hay cosas que me resuenan y las tomo. Y de repente en este momento hubo así como, bueno, yo voy tomando de aquí, de acá y voy experimentando de diferentes cosas. La pregunta un poco eso, ¿está bien o no está bien, no?
She shares that she listens to what you're saying and many things impact her, make an impact in her. She also listens to the teachings of oneness and some things also impact her. She also takes teachings of Buddhism. She sees many things that impact her. So she's watching that she takes things from here and there. And the question is if that is okay.
That's perfectly okay. That's what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to make yourself vulnerable to many teachings and to many masters, because if your understanding is fragile, then the moment you expose yourself to another teaching, then you may be destabilized if your understanding is very, very fragile and very weak. But if your understanding is robust, then no new teaching can upset you. And in fact, in the Gita, there are 2 sutras which say that the Sthita Prajna, one for whom Shakti has come to rest on Shiva's lap, his condition is such that he is not influenced by any past teaching. That is, he is not intimidated and he is not he need not even study the Vedas. He need not study the Vedas. And he does not have a craving for studying new forms of scriptures. He does not have a craving for studying the old form of scriptures. That is the state. And therefore, no new teaching impacting on you will destabilize you, and that is a test of the impregnability of your understanding. That is a test of the solidity and the perfection of your understanding. And some people's fortune it may be to be exposed to many teachings, but it may be the destiny of many people to have only one teaching in life, to be exposed only to one master in life. That is also okay. But I am just showing you a very comprehensive path where you take responsibility for your spiritual unfoldment and you are more diligent, not passive, but more diligent, more applying yourself, more persevering. And then you realize that at one point the seeking has to actually stop off. That's a sine qua non for realization. The seeking must stop off. So your exposure to many things are perfectly fine, but I want you to have the discrimination of what is the difference between a Buddhist teaching and a Hindu teaching and the oneness teaching. So that's part of your homework, because you are exposing yourself to so many teachings. You've got to start thinking about it, and you've got to see the merits and demerits in each teaching. You got to do it yourself.
Lo que me ha ido pasando es que voy encontrando en muchas ciertas similitudes que hacen como para mí una especie de unidad. Hay cosas que no sé si yo las interpreto, seguramente yo las interpreto, en donde no sé, o sea, la sensación que tengo es que van hablando de lo mismo, a lo mejor con diferentes expresiones o diferentes términos, pero que al final es lo mismo.
My feeling is that through listening to these different teachings, I feel like they're all coming from the same source. They have like the same purpose or underlying meaning. And maybe each one are trying to show different points of view.
Right.
They're showing reality in a different way. But I feel like in one perspective they are the same.
They are
the same.
They have the same purpose, in that they have to actually deliver you to moksha or help you get that salvation. and complete freedom from. So salvation, what does it mean? It means two things. It means the complete understanding and the cessation of suffering, stage 1. And as soon as that stage 1 is over, the understanding and the cessation of suffering, there is the awakening of intelligence as a consequence of that. Then, because the intelligence is awakened, the intelligence has all the wherewithal with it in order to probe into the divine and to understand the divine, to make the divine the beloved, and to be a slave of the divine. That is part 2 of salvation. So the salvation is in 2 parts, this moksha. This is awakening to the burden of suffering, then the experiencing of that suffering and purging of that suffering completely so that you're free of the burden. And then as a result of the ending of that suffering, then there is the awakening of intelligence. And without the awakening of that intelligence, you cannot resolve the mystery of the divine. Because the divine is mysterious and is hidden. So you need intelligence, the light of intelligence, in order to fathom the divine and follow the divine and identify the divine. And so part 1 of salvation is the awakening to suffering and the experiencing of suffering and the purging of suffering. Then as a consequence, the awakening of intelligence. And as a consequence of the awakening of intelligence, the understanding of the divine and the anchorage to the divine. The anchorage to the divine. And the divine becomes the beloved. Becomes the greatest beloved in life. And so when the whole journey is complete, then that's salvation. That's salvation. That is moksha. Some question?
Yeah. I think it's kind of the same question. Until now, I am still confused about moksha and the awakened state. Mm-hmm. It's different.
I've explained very clearly how you get to this moksha and what is moksha. I've said, first of all, there has to be the awakening to suffering in life, which is of course given by the divine. And then there has to be a drinking of that pain. And that may not be over, the drinking of that pain may not be over in one bout. You may drink the pain today, and next year a new quantum of pain may come into your life, and then you'll be obliged to drink that as well. And so this has to go on. And then as a result of the drinking of that pain, there is going to be the ending of suffering. And as a consequence of the ending of suffering, there is a consequential awakening of intelligence. And the awakened intelligence is capable of cracking the mystery of the divine and going back to the divine. If you do not have the wherewithal of that awakened intelligence, then you cannot actually resolve the mystery of the divine and understand the divine and go back home. So you need that intelligence which is like a torchlight. And that's that shows the way, that intelligence. And that intelligence itself is the divine also. It's given by the divine, that intelligence. And so the whole journey from the beginning of awakening to your personal suffering, then the ending of the personal suffering, awakening of intelligence, then pursuing the divine and making the divine the beloved in your life, and then no suffering, no past, no future, that is moksha. It has to be worked out. Not happening in a day. So is that clear? Is that clear what I'm saying? So now here is a great teaching from the Avatar Krishna. A great teaching, one of the greatest teachings. And just 2 lines. The teaching is only 2 lines. Like my master gave me a 2-line teaching when I was 21 years old. He initiated me when I was 15 years old. Then at 21, he gave me a teaching. He said, you've got to start looking at yourself. And I was too much involved with my fascination for physics and wanting to do research, so in an extroverted mode. And then he told me that you've got to start looking at yourself. And then he said it very harshly. Some masters can be harsh, but it's good for the disciple. So he said, if you do not look at yourself, then your life will be like a pig's life. Now this was my salvation. Because I got this salvation because of the harsh words spoken to me by my master when I was 21. I'm 64. I'm delivered. So very poignant, just 2 lines. And if you're not receptive, then probably it's coming here and going out. But if you're receptive, then you're blessed. So like those 2 lines, which of course was for a particular individual, here is a marvelous sutra. And the God Krishna, the avatar Krishna, he's giving this. So he's saying, look at the magnanimity of the Hindu thinking and the Hindu analysis. So he's saying, the God Krishna is saying in the Gita, that the transcendental, the Paramatma or the Parabrahma, you may say that he is neither existent nor non-existent. How do you like that? How do you like that? How does your mind like that? Conundrum. Very enigmatic. So you can't say that it actually exists. Why? The source we are talking about, the source of all life, the all-merciful, the omniscient, the omnipresent, why are we not able to say that it actually exists?
This is not tangible.
Exactly. It's not a goat which you can bring into this room and show, yeah, this is God. It's not a sensory object. So you cannot say that it exists. There'll be a lot of people coming for a fight with you because they're saying, come on, now you prove it. You made a statement that it exists. Come on, now you prove it. And you're not going to be able to prove it. That's the trouble with all the religions. So all the scientists and the rationalists whose thinking is more narrow and more limited, they've all kicked out religion from their lives. Because religion is speaking about the intangible, about the immeasurable, and the unknowable. The unknowable, the immeasurable, the intangible. And so you can't say it exists. And why can you not say that it does not exist?
Because you see the manifestation.
Pardon?
Because you see the manifestation of it in life, and you see things that are...
In your personal life?
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got to see it in your personal life. Otherwise you never know it exists. You've got to watch all the happenings in your life very, very closely, like how a researcher is watching under the microscope in a laboratory. Watching closely, studying closely. And then you know that there is some source. And you don't know where that source is obviously unmanifest. And from that source is coming impossible blessings from time to time. Therefore, you cannot say that it does not exist. So therefore, the teacher Krishna, he says, Nyayam yattat pravakshyami. Now I am going to declare to you what is the object which you have to know. Nyayam is the object of understanding. What is the goal of understanding? What is to be realized? I am now going to declare that to you. Yat jnatva mritam ashnute. Knowing which you attain immortality. If you know the truth for sure, without any vacillation, without a modicum of doubt, then you forthwith attain immortality. Yat jnatva mritam ashnute. Anadimat param brahma. Anadimat. That is without any beginning. Param Brahma, the supreme God. Nasat tanna saduchyate. You can neither say it exists, nor can you say it does not exist. And the Buddha took the option given here that he said that it does not exist. When people used to ask him, what can you say about ultimate reality? The Buddha always used to focus on part one of salvation, because I said salvation is in two parts. The first part of salvation is awakening to your suffering, and then after awakening of suffering, the experiencing of suffering, and with the experiencing happens the purgation of suffering, and with that is the ending of suffering. And as a consequence of the ending of suffering, intelligence is awakened. He said, concentrate there. That's all you need to know. You don't have to worry about the ultimate. So he warded off every question on the ultimate.